Welcome to Sobriety is Easy when I am your host, Julie Steiner. I'm so thrilled to share what makes sobriety easy based on 4 decades of sobriety and years of study. This podcast is about tools that help me, many of my students, and many clients discover who we are and how to journey through life as good human beings. If there's a person in your life whose alcohol or drug use or other addiction makes life difficult to impossible for you, these podcasts may give you insight into their behavior, as well as an appreciation for what it takes to live a sober life. Growing up in the home of an alcoholic or addict demands coping skills to help people to survive. However, these coping skills can interfere with relationships as an adult. Upcoming podcasts will examine the impact of alcoholism and other addictions on family, jobs, and friends. When I made the decision to stop drinking, I knew my life would dramatically change. I knew it had to be better. I was desperately trying to climb out of an oppressive life. Taking responsibility for my life was a new venture, and one that's crucial for everyone to take. When we're responsible for ourselves and we're careful about our impact on others, then we have the opportunity to contribute to life rather than drain it, as I did while using. We actually gain power through taking care of ourselves and doing what's right. I learned in sobriety that we gain power by inviting others to help us in whatever way is needed. We gain power by understanding the role of a power that's greater than us and caring for us and guiding us. We gain power by choosing to follow our higher power and using discernment as we listen to others around us. Here's a little background so you know to whom you're listening. I have a master's degree in sociology and a master's degree in social work. I have worked at a hospital for addiction, ran a program for perpetrators and survivors of sexual abuse, started a mentoring program for new moms, and taught at the community college for decades. Today I spend my time coaching adults, speaking, and consulting with a variety of companies regarding the company culture. I have a wonderful dog, a marvelous family, and a strong volunteer life. It's important for people in recovery to have a sense of purpose and give to others, which will become apparent as you listen to the podcasts. I'm a recovering alcoholic who was addicted to alcohol and marijuana and, for a short time, prescription pills. It got to the point that I drank at noon because my husband was going out to lunch with his comrades. Silly excuse. I drank before dinner so I could face the evening. I drank during dinner so that my husband wouldn't know that I had been drinking all day. And I drank at bedtime because that was our ritual. Of course, an alcoholic lies constantly. And the lies I thought with the alcohol hid my pain and my feeling of hopelessness and powerlessness. But however, they instead covered me with fear, doubt, and self-loathing. Rather than dwell on the past, today I want to talk about some tools and techniques in early sobriety that made a difference. As I mentioned, I didn't know who I was or what I liked because I was an empty shell. To aid me in my discovery, I engaged in simple activities, many suggested by others in sobriety. And one of the first activities was to list 50 ways to have fun without drugs or alcohol, with 40 of these needed to be things that could be done immediately, like walking by the river, watching a movie, dancing, playing a game, going to tea with friends. Because alcohol reduces our inhibitions, the things that were fun while drinking often are not fun in sobriety. It takes intention and effort to rediscover sober fun. I thought about what brought me some joy in my life when I was really young. They say that when you start drinking or have a trauma, that your emotional development stops. You're stuck at that age, which explains why I acted more immaturely than others around me. So my fun things were simple things, like going to the zoo, feeding the ducks, and digging in the dirt, which were great activities for this single mother of boys. The final 10 of the 50 fun things needs to be things you can't do now, either because it takes preparation before you engage in the activity, or it takes money, or it takes time, or something else that's currently not available to you. Having these longer-term fun activities on your list gives us hope that we're actually going to follow through. It also reduces stress, because annoyances of today are just that, annoyances, since we have bigger things that we're focusing on, our long-term plan. Clearly, this helps with commitment. Part of not knowing who I was mean I didn't even know what color I liked. To my amazement, when I got sober, I bought a pink spring jacket, a full-length shiny pink raincoat, and a pink purse. I hated pink my entire life. Well, why not? I hated myself. I hated being a girl. So it's interesting that in sobriety, I got all this pink stuff. I also didn't know what music I liked. I didn't know what I liked to do with my time. The abuse, alcohol, and drugs had stolen my being. They did not steal my ability to choose to do differently. I prayed for the chains tying me to the oppressive life to be broken, and they were. Like many people when I got sober, the sun shone more brightly, the raindrops were pleasant rather than annoying, and I could clearly see others around me. The oppressive cloud was gone. That meant it might be possible to discover who I was and possible to live life sober. When you listen to these podcasts, you'll see that I'm a very organized individual. There are many topics and nuances that have contributed to my 4 decades of sobriety, and I hope to impart the simplicity and depth of commitment that it has taken, and I believe is required, to have a meaningful, joyous, sober life. In each podcast, there'll be activities or thought-provoking questions to help with each stage of sobriety centered on a specific topic or two. Each episode will also include examples and keys to unlock your sober life. Today's keys are freedom, willingness, choices, and commitment. There are many paths to sobriety, so the important step you need to start with is trying a path that you believe suits you, your personality, experiences, life lessons, and perspectives that are all unique to you. Think about the way you like to learn and consider what you may read multiple books a month. Another person may watch tens of videos a month, while another person exploring hands-on methods of learning each month. In the same way, you want to find the path that suits you for sobriety. I will present multiple paths that are options, and for some of you, they may be a beginning point to the path that you create for yourself. As mentioned earlier, I didn't know who I was. Literally, the emptiness that consumed me was devoid of feeling. It was more empty than being numb. There was nothingness. I knew I liked to learn because I had a master's degree and I thoroughly enjoyed school. That meant in sobriety, I would like to learn as much as possible about this thing people called alcoholism. Even though I grew up among many alcoholics, I had no idea what it was and what I was observing. I did not realize that what I was experiencing was anything but normal. This meant my sobriety path began by attending lectures and seeking the advice of experts in the field. I took what I was learning to heart and started applying the information to my own life. That application was from the gift of willingness, which allowed me to seek out information, to seek out people with different ideas and people who were doing things very differently than I was in my life. If you're a praying person, I highly recommend that you ask for that gift. And if not, then I ask you to continue listening and do more research on how you may attain that gift. Willingness is an essential key to changing life from emptiness and misery that addiction offers to fullness and meaning and joy that sobriety has for all of us. One of the best parts of sobriety is there's no longer judgment. While we may be accountable for our behavior and even our attitude, we are not judged by ourselves or by someone else. We are finally free. So there's nothing I have to do, and I see everything as a choice. I choose to follow the rules. I choose to follow the suggestions, and I choose to follow the requirements. Or not. When we choose an action or thought pattern, we're choosing associated outcomes. If you choose to walk outside wearing only a t-shirt when the temperature is 0 degrees, you will experience the outcome of being very cold. And if you stay outside long enough, you'll get frostbite. You chose not to listen to the advice of others and not to wear a jacket. Somehow when we realize we don't have to wear the jacket, we simply want the protection, then we feel energized. Life is simpler. It's a choice. We are free to drink or not drink. One day at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time. It allows us to choose repeatedly. Commitment to sobriety means that we've chosen the long-term behavior of choosing to not drink. It's a beautiful thing when you realize that your choice to commit frees daily energy because it's not a question as to whether you'll drink or not, so you have more energy to make other choices. It took me several months of hard work to make the decision to commit. I made my commitment to the Lord because I knew I couldn't count on myself, so I had to anchor my commitment to something greater than me, which for me is God. I made a commitment because I had 2 small children, an 11-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, who were counting on me for their survival. They say don't get sober for someone else. However, doing it for yourself may not be the best. I didn't trust myself. I didn't like myself. I certainly didn't know who I was. So how could I get sober for me? I was nothing. I could change everything in my life for the lives of my children because I wanted them to have everything they needed to grow into the men our world needed. The men who could lead and make a difference in a positive way was the goal. I didn't commit my sobriety to my sons. I committed it to the Lord. However, I made the commitment so that I could be present to nourish and train up my sons in the way they should go. After I'd been sober for many months, probably a year or 2, I was able to say that I was staying sober for myself and for the life I needed to lead to fulfill my purpose on this earth. I outgrew the need to not drink for the sake of my sons. I had worked the program diligently and thoroughly, which allowed me to discover who I was, to become a good person, and to trust and like myself. I remember the good person I was growing up, and that had been hiding inside of me during all the abuse from others. In sobriety, I protected and nourished the little girl in me daily. I remember what it was like when I realized how positive my thoughts had become. Freedom was the gift that willingness to do the work and living my commitment provided me. This was part of the promises of recovery being fulfilled. You're hearing me use concepts that are used in the 12-step recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So when I say I worked the program diligently, it means that I attended meetings, worked the 12 steps, had a sponsor, had a higher power, and connected with others. I also exercised and had fun. I'll talk about the 12 steps in a future podcast because they're an important part of living my life. But they're not the only way. For me, it's been the best way. The promises are what we can expect from working the program. Back to getting our body and our mind in line with our commitment. That commitment doesn't mean that your body and mind are convinced that you ought to change your behavior of drinking daily or whatever your pattern was. Your recovery needs to address ways to bring your body and mind in line with your commitment. There's a lot of literature available that links our thoughts and beliefs to responses in our body, whether hormonally or through conditioning. If you have a habit of having a drink after work or having a cigarette when you get in the car, then your body and your mind have a habit they will promote and fight with you to continue. A few things can interfere with an old pattern, such as replacing it with a new pattern and replacing the thinking. A simple change that helped me early in sobriety was drinking cranberry juice with ginger ale rather than ginger ale with alcohol. The uniqueness as well as pleasant flavor of the drink helped my brain to get positive endorphins even though it wasn't getting what it expected. Cognitive map is the concept that helped me understand why we so quickly follow an old habit that we don't want anymore. When we repeat something over and over, our brain creates a quick path between these synapses because our brain and our body are very efficient. For example, you may have decided to go see Aunt Sally on Monday because you have the day off for the holiday. You get ready, gather your things, get in the car, starting down the road that you do every Monday through Friday. For some reason, when you get to the spotlight that you normally turn right to go to work, your car actually goes that way on this day when you want to turn left to go see Aunt Sally. Most of us have had the car do that at some point. Our brain has a cognitive map that we get to that particular point in the road, we turn a certain direction. So when we get sober, our cognitive map is fighting us because it's reaching for that alcohol when we get home from work, or while making dinner, or after dinner. We need to change the cognitive map, and there are multiple ways that you can accomplish that. An effective way to change the map is through what you speak. Some people use a mantra, others use positive affirmations. This concept has faced controversy at various times in the last couple decades, and current studies show why it's effective. I've used it with many of my clients and students in sobriety, and I can tell you that for us, it's been very effective. Please try it, then decide how well it does or doesn't work for you. We'll talk more in depth about positive affirmation and exactly what's going on in the brain in a future episode. The short version is, typically a positive affirmation is a statement that is the opposite or close to the opposite of a negative belief or statement that you currently say to yourself, usually automatically. They can also be statements of what you want or are striving for, such as, I'm enjoying being alcohol-free. I am enjoying an active, sober life. What you want to do is say it in front of the mirror, looking at yourself 10 times in the morning and 10 times at night for minimum. What I would do is if I stopped at a stoplight and the kids weren't in the car, I'd repeat the affirmation several times. I knew I'd been hearing my whole life from family, friends, teachers, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. Why are you overreacting? How come this isn't done? What's the matter? Why are you so... I had years that negative speak from all kinds of people in my brain, so I needed to get it out of there. The best way was to repeat the positive over and over and over. I didn't want it to take years to change my brain. I had 2 little boys to train up, so I worked my program very vigorously. One affirmation I particularly liked was, I am enjoying the fortitude to face life challenges sober. Believe me, being a single parent is a challenge. For me, that started when I got sober, or I got sober when that started. Another way to change your cognitive map is intentionally change your behavior that is linked to an old routine. You could also completely change some routines. For example, if your routine was to stop at the bar and have drinks with friends after work, then you can stop at the gym, perhaps with a friend, after work. You're doing an activity at the same time, after work, with the same type of person, someone you know, just the setting and activity has changed. You swap the gym for the bar. That change is not so huge, which is making it easier for your brain to adjust. I know people who have an 80-pound punching bag in the garage that they punch when they arrive home from work until they feel relaxed, and then they enter the house. What is important is that you identify behavior that will replace the old behavior associated with your cognitive map. It may be helpful to talk with your ideas over about a new cognitive map with a trusted friend, or if you're in a recovery program with your sponsor. It's important to try the new behavior for at least 3 weeks to determine if there's any movement in the strength of the cognitive map. Is the new behavior becoming more comfortable and more automatic? Then it's working. It takes time. A third way to change your cognitive map is to call a trusted friend at the time your cognitive map would typically lead to drinking alcohol. Like when you're stressed or when you're excited. You want to have a long list of potential people to call in case some of them aren't home or available when you need to interrupt your brain's process. If you're changing a routine, then you can make an appointment with a friend or relative to call and talk at the time that you're going to need it in the routine, such as your drive home from work. In those instances, talking to someone you enjoy will be just as effective as talking with someone who knows your situation, because you don't need to be addressing the situation. You simply need a distraction to change the old habit. I had good friends in sobriety who found their community in a church. They connected with people who provided a safe place that they needed to find purpose and meaning and enjoy sobriety. Our paths will not all look the same. We can only share what's worked in hopes that you will try different things until you find what works for you. My goal is to help people avoid the pain that I've felt and to lead rich, purposeful lives that contribute to this wonderful world. The first podcast comes to a close after talking about freedom, choices and commitment, willingness, and changing habits through affirmations and cognitive maps. I hope these pieces of the sobriety path will make it easier for you. For those of you who aren't alcoholics or addicts, I hope you took away a nugget. I look forward to sharing additional tools next week. Please join me on this miraculous path.